So here we are, a day after the finale, the grand finale of Pesach, and the day after Shvi or Achron Shel Pesach, when we mentioned a few days ago that Pesach is the spring of the world, and the world is becoming spring. Although in Nebraska, this is the spring, snow, beautiful white, fluffy, and soft snow. Either way, here we are a day after Pesach, and we're about to approach Shabbos Parshas Shmini. And the question is relevant for our times, where we don't have shuls to go to, we don't have synagogues to go to, we're home. How can I draw some inspiration from this week's Parshas Shmini to our lives? And we'll also connect the time period that we're in, Svirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer from Pesach till Shavuos. So in this week's Parsha, we have a very fascinating word, which is called Kadosh. Tem Kedoshim, Viskadishtem, Viskadashtem, which means that you should be holy, and the directive that's learned from here is the law of either washing my hands before I eat bread, or washing my hands at the end of the meal, what we call Mayim Rishonim or Mayim Achronim. So we learn from these words of being holy, of Kadosh, that I should wash my hands for either Mayim Rishonim or Mayim Achronim, for washing my hands before I eat bread or before I do Birkat HaMazon, before I bench. Why? Why is that holy? Why is that the word that's learnt out? The word that's learnt out in this week's Parsha, in Parsha Shmini, when it talks about eating all the kosher foods, all the kosher animals, and not eating the non-kosher animals, the word that's used is holy, v'yiskadishtem. Also, we know that before we make a bracha, before we make a blessing, when we wash our hands, either in the morning or before I eat bread, I make al netilat yadayim. That I wash my hands, I make a bracha, a netila. And what does the word netila mean? So we know there's an idea from the Rishonim, from the Rush, and etc., that netila represents the natla, which represents a jug or a vessel, utensil, in which we're pouring the water from. But that's not the main idea. Why is that what's being accessed over here? Why are we talking about the cup? What is this idea of the netila? So there's a great rabbi called the Ksava Kabbalah who explains that the word netilat yadayim, when we wash our hands, we make netilat yadayim, it doesn't necessarily mean wash, but it means to take, to uplift. I uplift my hands. Netilah doesn't necessarily mean to wash, but it means I take my hands from being just physical beings, from being physical hands, and through my washing process, I'm actually uplifting it. Through my washing before I eat bread, or before Birkat HaMazon, before I bench, or I say Birkat HaMazon, or before I wake up in the morning. When I wake up in the morning, I wash my hands, I make a bracha on Netilat Yadayim, and Netilah, says the Ksava Kabbalah, means that I take my hands and I am transcending the physical part of my hands by washing them. And that gets back to this point of holiness. Holiness in this week's parsha, that's addressed when it comes to eating kosher. Eating kosher doesn't mean that a rabbi blesses it. Eating kosher means that I take this physical desire of mine and I uplift it. I make it more meaningful. I take my desires, not squashing the desires. Judaism does not believe in squashing the desires, but I take my desires to eat, my desires to whatever I am pursuing in life, and I'm doing netila, which means I'm uplifting them. I'm uplifting all my pursuits. So therefore, when it comes to the way a person who wants to be holy, person who wants to be holy, takes everything around them, all their desires, all their drives in life, and says, you know what? With what I am pursuing, there's something larger than just the moment. There's something larger than just the desire, what I'm desiring right now. But even my desire is something large, something greater. There's something that I can do with my desires. There's something that I can do with my drives that could actually be uplifted. That's the idea of being holy. And then based on that, the times that we're living in right now, Now this goes beyond kosher food, and it goes beyond washing my hands before I eat. It's the times that we're living in right now. The times that we're living in right now are making us readdress all the luxury, all the comfort, all the physical in our lives. We're readdressing the whole point of society. We're readdressing our money. We're readdressing our synagogues, our shuls. We're readdressing our yeshivos, our Torah learning, our davening with a minyan, our praying with a minyan. We're readdressing everything. Why? In order to make them holy. In order to take a step back, to wash our hands, to be able to purify all of our pursuits, be it material, be it spiritual. We're able to now sanctify. We're able to make them kadosh. Now, that is this week's parsha. What does that have to do with the Omer? So the Omer, we go from Pesach to Shavuos, and we make a bracha every single day. If we're counting, we're still counting. We count up from Pesach until Shavuos. Usually when we count towards something, we count down. We say there's 10 more days to spring break, 9 more days to the restrictions, 9 more days for the restrictions to be lifted. Now, all of a sudden, we're counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until we get the receiving of the Torah in less than 42 days. So the question is, why am I counting up as opposed to counting down? And perhaps the idea is that every day I'm actually gaining something. And every day from Pesach to Shavuos, we know I'm supposed to work on a specific character trait. I'm supposed to work on a midah. I'm supposed to work on myself. I'm supposed to change how I look at things, how I feel about things. Now, all of us are not able to go to life as normal. We're not able to actually be enveloped by society. We're not able to have mass gatherings. So instead, we're home with our families. That means it's time for me to work on myself. It's time for time for me to work on my midos. Time for me to work on every aspect of my life, my character traits. How am I as a husband? How am I as a father? How am I as a spouse? How am I as a friend? How am I with the people that I'm living with 24/7? How am I dealing with them? How am I addressing them? How am I relating to them? These are basic midos. These are basic character traits. It's not about the accomplishments. It's not about what I'm accomplishing outside of my house. It's about how am I living in my midot, in my character traits, in the measurements of what makes me what I am. And this is the introduction from Pesach to Shavuos. This is the introduction of going from Pesach, from becoming a nation, to Shavuos, to receiving our responsibility, our mandate, our goal of making this world a more godly world. But we have to refine our character traits as an introduction. The introduction from Pesach to Shavuos is that every day for 49 days, I work on a different trait. I work on a different character trait to refine them, to make sure that my traits are refined to be able to get my eternal mission, and to get my eternal mission from a place of purity. So I go back to my bread, and I go back to my pursuits, and I wash my hands to get rid of my subjectivities, to become pure, to be kadosh, to be holy. When I'm holy, I get rid of my subjectivities because I'm pursuing something larger. So this Shabbos, as we approach this Shabbos, the Parsha Shmini, in which Shmini is all about, or a lot of it is about, I should say the second half is about kosher food. And it's about being kadosh, being holy. Holy doesn't mean heebie-jeebie, that the rabbi blesses the food. It means approaching and reapproaching all the physical in my life and saying, what's the value of it? Is there something beyond just the moment that I can tap into? That is the goal of Parsha Shmini. That is the goal of kosher food. That is the goal of being kadosh, of being holy. And that is the time period they're in from Pesach to Shavuos. Right now, again, we're all quarantined. And we're all by ourselves, and perhaps with our nuclear family, and working on basic character traits that perhaps I overlooked in my pursuits of something much larger. But I have to refocus and readdress, and I have to go back to all the pursuits in my life and to make sure that they're kadosh, and make sure that they're holy. I have to make a bracha al netilat yadayim when I wash my hands, because when I'm washing my hands, I'm taking my pursuits, my hands, my yadayim, and I am being notel, which means to uplift, which means to now take my pursuits and make them more godly, make them more meaningful, make them more lasting, make them more eternal. That's the time period that we're in right now. I don't know how much longer we're going to be in this time period. It could be months, it could be a year, it could be weeks. Bezrat Hashem, it should be the will of God. It should be much shorter than that. And we should be able to learn the lessons of Kedusha, of holiness, of Netila, of taking everything in our life and uplifting it and making it transcend just the moment. May we all eat kosher. May we all be kadosh. May we all wash our hands before we eat bread. May we all wash our hands when we wake up in the morning. May we learn the values of what the Torah is teaching us, to be kadosh, to be holy, to be purified, to transcend the moment, to make a moment last forever. Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom Umivarach. Wishing everybody a good Shabbos, a meaningful, deep, introspective Shabbos that changes how we look at the entire world. May we be kadosh. May we be holy. Thank you very much.